In my almost 5 years of helping folks buy and sell their home, I've realized that there's these preconceived notions of what we think we need to do before we buy a home. One of those things is money. Necessarily not just money, but the amount of money you need to actually buy the home. Like you, I used to think, well, you need to at least save up 2 years worth of money, roll up your sleeves, get to work, save thousands of dollars, and maybe then you'd consider accomplishing the American dream of home ownership. And on the other side of the spectrum, you have these 0% down programs being advertised everywhere, usually with some cheesy ads with the realtor that looks like the picture was taken in the 80s, you're not too sure, and it's kind of confusing. So you either have this preconceived notion of you need thousands of dollars, or these kind of shady, cheesy 0% down things that sound like they're too good to be true. So what is the truth? Well, today we're going to talk about not what is out there. I'm not going to speak here from my mighty platform and tell you how it is. I'm just going to explain from my experience in helping people buy real estate for the last 5 years, what I see is common with people, how much money they usually spend, and all that good stuff. I'm going to break this video down into categories. The first one is fixed costs. Costs are usually going to be associated with buying home regardless of what financing and down payment you do. The second category is going to be your down payment. This, of course, will vary on what kind of program you choose, so I'll kind of briefly talk about what I see is common with the people I help. Fixed costs, regardless of what financing you do, this is usually things that you're going to have to pay for. I'm going to give you a rough estimate of the ranges I've seen in these items because it's not just set in stone what these cost. I'm going to give you a range, but then I'm going to give you a conservative number so we can kind of tally up at the end of the video approximately how much you need. So hopefully it helps. The first thing is a home inspection. Home inspection is absolutely required anytime you buy a home. It's not required on the contract, but any person who's buying something that's used, you want to make sure you know what you're buying. Usually I've seen these as cheap as $200, which is crazy nowadays, and I've seen them go all the way up to $500. And usually what determines how what determines the price of the inspection is the things they do. A lot of people offer you bells and whistles telling you they're going to look behind walls with these technology. A lot of people that charge $200 tend to be super busy and you have to book a month in advance. Usually the people I use tend to be in that $275 to $350 range, and they offer a very reliable and clean inspection every time. Keep in mind, you don't have to use the inspector your realtor recommends. You can definitely go out there and shop around and see if you can find one. Usually when a realtor recommends an inspector though, it's because they're always dependable, they're reliable, and they're always doing a good job for their clients. So, kind of if you're going to go out and look, make sure you look up reviews and whatnot. So I'm going to say an average cost of a home inspection is going to be $300. This is a little bit on the mid-range side, a little on the low side, but I'm pretty sure if you do a pretty good job finding a good inspector that's reliable, that's the price that I've usually seen in my career. That's about the same. The second thing is the home appraisal. So the bank isn't just going to give you the amount of money, loan you the amount of money that you decided to offer for that house. They're going to make sure that home is worth what it's worth, and their investment in you as a home loan, they're going to make sure they're going to get their money back eventually in case you decide to not pay your loan. So what do? They make you, the buyer, pay for a home appraisal out of your dime. These home appraisers are going to go out and verify the home is worth what it's worth. They're going to give you what their opinion of the value is, and it's either going to give you what you want and give you the value that you offered, or it's going to come in under. That's going to be another video on its own. I promise I'll make that in the future. But for now, all you need to know is the average range that I see is $400 to $550. I've seen some go really low, but that was years ago, like in the $300 range. The most common one I'm seeing now is about $500. So I'm going to say $500 for the sake of the video. I will put an asterisk on this. There are some lenders out there, one in particular that I work with that is phenomenal, that offers to pay this appraisal service for their client. Now, usually when they offer you to do this, maybe their closing costs might be a little higher. Next thing is the earnest money. The earnest money is the buyer's deposit that shows good faith to the seller that they're committed to buying your home. Now, once again, I don't want to get myself in trouble. So what I'm going to tell you is, in my opinion, I've seen them from $500 all the way up to $10,000. The most common thing I've seen in my career is a flat $1,000. So this doesn't have to get paid until you find the home you like. You make an offer and it gets accepted after counter offers or just a plain offer that they accept. Once it's accepted, you have 1 or 2 days to get it turned in, and this money doesn't just poof go away after you close. This money eventually gets applied towards your closing funds at the end of the transaction. So for example, if your down payment ends up being $5,000, you put $1,000 as your earnest money. At the end of the transaction, you'll have to pay $4,000. Likewise, if you're doing down payment assistance and your down payment only ends up being $500, you give $1,000 in the beginning, and so at the end of the transaction, you'll actually get back $500. And the final thing in these fixed costs is your closing costs. Closing costs is probably the most surprising fee that I have to tell people about when they're buying a home. When you're financing a home, the lender is always going to have closing costs. And on top of that, you have to pay your insurance premium, HOA transfer fees, taxes up front, a bunch of fun stuff that you just have to add there. A safe number to assume that your closing costs, what the range you're going to be in, is 3% of the purchase price. So for example, 3% of 150 would be $4,500, 200,000 would be $6,000, 250 said would be 7,500, etc. So this always ranges though, because it depends on what area you're buying in. Some areas taxes are lower, some offer lower insurance premiums. I've sold homes at $200,000 that are only end up being like $4,000 of closing costs. I've sold homes at $140,000 that ends up being about $5,000 worth of closing costs. So in this scenario, I'm going to say 3%, but it always depends. So just, keep an open mind with that. The good news about closing costs is if you get a home in the right situation with the right agent representing you, oh God, what's wrong with me? I'm going to keep it. Screw it, I'm going to keep it. You can actually have the seller pay for your closing cost, and this would be great. So for this sake of the video, I'm going to assume that you have a badass agent that helped you negotiate closing costs for you, so the closing cost amount that you have to pay would be $0. Second category is your down payment. I'm not going to go into great detail of the financing options for you because there are thousands of loan programs out. So I'm going to give you the basic loan programs that I usually see. My recommendation to you is you talk to a lender and have them go over every option that you possibly can. Every scenario is different. You might have a higher down payment, you have a higher interest rate, but I'm just going to give you what I usually see, so take that with a grain of salt. First option is probably the one you've heard of, FHA, Federal Housing Administration Loan. This is a government-backed loan. I think the max amount is like $285. That's the most you can buy. And this is pretty popular with first-time home buyers because it usually has lower interest and probably the lowest down payment you can do. The basic down payment on FHA is at 3.5%. So at $150,000, so around $200,000 at 3.5%, you're looking at a down payment of $7,000. At $150,000, I'm sure you can do the math. You can kind of see it there. So that's 3.5%. Your second option is still FHA, but it's a down payment assistance program. FHA, usually called Home in 5 program. You can Google it. You can find all the history about it. Recently, like a few years ago or a year ago, they changed it, so now it's I don't want to go into the details. Let me just give you the brass tacks. With Home in 5, it's still 3.5% down FHA loan, but the government will give you a grant of 3% of the purchase price to assist you in buying your home. So now you as the buyer are responsible for coming up with the additional 0.5%. So in our example of $200,000, instead of paying $7,000 as a down payment, you now only have to pay $1,000. Seems like a no-brainer, right? You're going to save $6,000 with this program, but here's the caveat. Your credit score needs to be a lot higher than with your FHA. So it's like in ranks, different rankings, but to get the most amount of down payment assistance of 3%, you need about $660. And the interest rate is a little bit higher. So you're going to end up paying another $40 to $80 on your monthly payment. Although you will be receiving a 3% grant, you will be paying a little more on the monthly payment. And the third option I'm going to leave open as the financing. If you're VA, you've served in the military, thank you for your service. You get to do a VA loan if you want to. A lot of people save it for their big home down in their lifetime. But if you want to use it for your first one, it's totally fine, 0%. There's some miscellaneous fees that have to get paid by certain people. Just talk to me and I'll be able to help you, or talk to your local realtor, they'll be able to help. There's also options for conventional financing. So usually you have to have a higher credit score to really maximize on the benefits of a conventional loan. There's so many scenarios that you can do with it. You can do 5%, 10%, 20% down. There's even down payment assistance conventional programs. There's all kinds of fun stuff. So I'm not going to bog you down with the details of how it looks like. So I'm just going to say conventional. Talk to your lender. We're just going to focus on the FHA ones for today. So in our grand total, if we do a down payment assistance program, we have our fixed cost here. We have our down payment of, depending on your purchase price, $200,000 is what I'm seeing nowadays. $1,000, let's just say, boom, that's going to be your with down payment assistance. So at $200,000 with the fees we have, you have a grand total of down payment of about this, which is really nice. And of course, if you want to buy something cheaper like $150,000, then the numbers kind of change and it ends up being only about this, which is really nice. And it's totally different compared to the thousands of dollars that you think you needed. Now, if we go back and we do a normal FHA at 3.5% at $200,000, you have your fixed costs, which are about the same. We're assuming, once again, the closing costs are being paid by the seller. We have the down payment about this at $200,000. And so we're looking at a fixed cost or a total out of pocket of this. I can tell you that the monthly payment would be lower because the interest rate is usually lower when you don't use down payment assistance. So is it worth paying the extra $5,000 or $6,000 to get a smaller monthly payment? Well, it depends. If you're buying a home that's going to be a temporary 3 to 5 year house that you're kind of just going to live in and then kind of leave in it when, you know, build some equity, then leave and go buy the dream home, then it's totally worth it, because the extra $50 that you're going to pay monthly, let's just take it down. If you're going to live in a house for 5 years, you're going to pay, using down payment assistance, an extra $50 a month. So if we calculate that annually, this is how much you're more paying a year, and this is how much you're going to be paying over the time of 5 years. Now, remember, if you bought a home for $200,000, you actually receive the government grant of this much. As you can tell, you're still in the positive because the government gave you this amount of money, but you only had to actually put this in. So it makes sense, right? You're going to sell it 3 to 5 years. You're good. You're going to go buy that home that you love, or the dream home in wherever you want to be, and then you're Gucci, right? Now, if you're going to buy a down payment assistance program and you're going to be in it for the time of the 30 years, so this is going to be the house you're going to buy and you're going to live in for the rest of your life, then it doesn't make sense. Because if you do the $50 annually and you do it over 30 years, this is how it looks like now. And compared to what the government gave you, it really doesn't make sense at all to do that. So in that case, it might make sense to save up the money, do a regular FHA loan, and then you'll save some money over the time of the loan. That's it, guys. I hope that kind of made sense. These videos are just to give you an idea of what's out there. This isn't meant to actually start your home buying process. I recommend when it's time to look for a home, you find a realtor. Hopefully, if they're any good, they'll meet with you in person. They'll explain every single detail of the home buying process and then get the ball rolling. If you are in the West Valley, I would love to help you. If you're just in the early stages and you want to at least start looking at some houses online without having to worry about signing in, you can go to my website here, searchwestvalley.com. There you'll find my phone number, my email if you need to get a hold of me. And of course, if you have any questions or any ideas for any future topics of videos, you can comment below and we'll definitely help you out. Thank you guys so much. I hope this video helped, and have a great one.